Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The silence in the penthouse was absolute, a stark contrast to the storm that had just subsided within her. Willow Tate, now Willow Corinthos, stood motionless in the center of the room, her hands hanging limply at her sides. The world outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the familiar skyline of Port Charles, seemed to tilt on its axis, a shimmering, alien landscape viewed through a veil of unshed tears. The last fragments of the mental block, the fortress she had unknowingly built to protect herself, had crumbled. And what was left in the rubble was not a liberation, but a damnation. It had come in a flood, a brutal, unforgiving torrent of sensory detail that was more real than the ground beneath her feet. The scent of damp earth and gunpowder. The chill of the night air against her skin. The frantic, panicked rhythm of her own heart, a wild drumbeat against her ribs. And Drew's face. Not the face of the confident, capable man she knew now, but a face twisted in a confusion that mirrored her own, a man caught in a web he didn't understand. They were arguing. The words were a jumble, lost to the roar of adrenaline in her memory, but the emotions were crystalline: fear, betrayal, a desperate, clawing need to protect the people she loved. Then, the gun. Cold and heavy in her hand, an object that felt both alien and terrifyingly familiar. The weight of it was seared into her muscle memory. She hadn't known how to hold it properly, her grip had been clumsy, desperate. He had moved toward her, a placating gesture, his mouth forming her name, Willow, but the sound was swallowed by the deafening crack that split the night. The recoil. A violent jerk that traveled up her arm and shattered her soul. The look in his eyes, not just pain, but a profound, gut-wrenching shock. The knowledge that she, Willow, the person who represented kindness and stability, was the source of this violence. He crumpled. The world slowed to a horrifying crawl. The blood, dark and shocking against the pale fabric of his shirt, spreading with a terrible, relentless finality. And then, the running. The frantic, mindless flight through the trees, branches whipping at her face and arms, the sobs tearing from her throat. The overwhelming, all-consuming need to get away, to erase what had happened, to become someone else, anyone else. The memory didn't just replay, it invaded. It was not a movie she watched, but a skin she was forced back into. She was there, on that cliff, the gun smoking in her hand, and she was here, in her safe, luxurious home, and the two realities were crashing together with the force of a planetary collision. A small, wounded sound escaped her lips, the first noise she had made in what felt like an eternity. Her legs gave way, and she sank to the plush carpet, her body folding in on itself as if to contain the horrific truth. She wrapped her arms around her middle, rocking slightly, a primitive gesture of comfort that offered none. "I did it," she whispered to the empty room. The words were barely audible, but they echoed in the silence with the force of a scream. "It was me. All this time." All the fear, the suspicion cast on others, the quiet, gnawing guilt she had felt for not being able to provide answers, for Drew's suffering, for the shadow it cast over their lives. It had been her own shadow all along. She was the architect of the nightmare that had consumed them. The investigation, the detectives, the worried looks from Michael, the constant, low-grade anxiety that had hummed in the background of her life since that night, it had all been a grotesque charade, a play in which she was the unwitting villain. Her mind, in its ultimate act of self-preservation, had performed a miracle of betrayal. It had hidden the truth from her, allowing her to live, to love, to marry Michael, to be a mother to Wiley, all while carrying this poisoned secret in her subconscious. The migraines, the flashes of unease, the moments of inexplicable dread, they weren't symptoms of a random illness. They were the truth, rattling the bars of its cage, demanding to be free. And now it was free. And it was destroying her. The sound of a key in the lock made her flinch violently. She scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering against her breastbone, a frantic, trapped bird. She wiped hastily at her tear-streaked face, but she knew the devastation would be impossible to hide. The door opened, and Michael stepped inside, his expression shifting from the weary contentment of a long day to immediate, sharp concern the moment his eyes landed on her. "Willow?" He was at her side in an instant, his hands coming up to cradle her face. "My God, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Is it Wiley?" His touch, usually her greatest solace, felt like a brand. She recoiled, taking a stumbling step backward. She couldn't bear it. The purity of his love, the protective fury that would surely ignite in his eyes when he knew she was unworthy of it. She had made a mockery of it. "Don't," she choked out, hugging herself again. "Please, don't touch me." Michael's face paled. "Talk to me. What happened? Did someone threaten you? Was it Nina? Cyrus?" His mind, ever the strategist, immediately went to external threats. He could not conceive that the enemy was in the room with them. She shook her head, a frantic, jerky motion. The words were stuck in her throat, thick and suffocating. "How did you tell the man you loved, the father of your child, that you were the one who had nearly killed his uncle, the man who was like a brother to him? How did you speak a truth that would irrevocably shatter the life you had built together?" "Willow, you're scaring me," Michael said, his voice low and urgent. "Whatever it is, we can face it. Together. Just tell me." He reached for her again, and this time, she was too weak, too broken to pull away. His arms encircled her, and she went rigid, her body a plank of wood against his. The warmth of him, the solid, dependable strength that had been her anchor through so much, now felt like a prison. The memories, she whispered into his shoulder, her voice muffled and broken. "They're back, Michael. All of them." She felt him still. He knew what this meant. The search for Drew's shooter had been a constant, unresolved thread in the tapestry of their lives. He held her tighter. "Okay," he said, his tone shifting from panic to a forced, steady calm. "Okay, that's good, right? We finally have answers. We can finally put this behind us. Who was it? Tell me who did this to Drew, and I will make sure they pay for it." His words were a knife, twisting in the wound. Make sure they pay for it. She was the one who would pay. She was the one he would now have to protect the world from. Or protect from the world. She pushed against his chest, creating a sliver of space between them. She forced herself to meet his gaze, to see the love and concern in his hazel eyes before she extinguished it. Her own eyes were pools of utter despair. "Michael," she said, her voice trembling so violently she could barely form the words. "There's no one to make pay. It was me." The silence that followed was heavier and more profound than any that had come before. Michael's face went blank with shock. It was as if her words were in a foreign language his brain could not process. He blinked, his brow furrowing. "What?" The question was a breath, a puff of air laden with disbelief. "What did you say?" "I shot him," she repeated, the statement clearer now, harsher in its clarity. "I had the gun. We were arguing. He came toward me, and I pulled the trigger. It was an accident, I swear to you, I never meant to, but I did it. My finger was on the trigger. I am the one who almost killed Drew." She watched as understanding dawned, slow and terrible. The love in his eyes didn't vanish, not immediately. It was joined by a storm of other emotions, confusion, denial, a dawning horror. His arms, which had been holding her, loosened their grip. He took a half step back, his gaze searching her face as if looking for a sign that this was some cruel joke, a hallucination. "No," he said, the word firm, a refusal to accept. "That's not possible, Willow. You would never. You couldn't." "I did," she insisted, the memory flashing behind her eyes again, making her flinch. "I remember the sound. The smell. The way he looked at me. I remember running. I was so scared, Michael. So terrified of what I had done that my mind, it just broke. It hid it from me. It let me forget." The logic of it, the psychological plausibility, began to penetrate his denial. He knew her history. He knew the trauma she had endured, the mental fortitude it had taken to survive her mother's abandonment, her illness, Nina's manipulations. He knew the mind was capable of incredible feats of self-protection. This was the darkest feat of all. He sank onto the arm of the nearby sofa, running a hand over his face. The weight of her confession was a physical thing, pressing down on both of them. Why? He finally asked, his voice hoarse. Why were you even there with him? Why did you have a gun? The question unleashed the second wave of the memory, the context that made the act both more understandable and infinitely more tragic. It was about Nina, Willow said, her voice flat now, drained of all emotion. I had found something. I don't even remember what now, some document, a bank statement, something that proved she was involved in another one of her schemes. Something that would have hurt you, hurt Carly, hurt the company. I was so angry. I felt so betrayed, all over again. I confronted her, and she laughed it off. Told me I was being dramatic, that I would never do anything to hurt my own mother. She wrapped her arms around herself, the ghost of that fury a cold echo in her veins. I wasn't thinking straight. I was furious. I thought if I told Drew, he would know what to do. He was always the rational one, the one who could handle Nina. I went to the Cliffs, a place we'd met before, to talk privately. I had the gun in my purse. I'd taken it from the safe here. I don't even know why. I think I just wanted to feel powerful, to feel like I had some control. It was stupid, so incredibly stupid. She took a shaky breath. When Drew arrived, I was a mess. I was waving the papers, crying, telling him what Nina had done. But he didn't react the way I expected. He was trying to calm me down, telling me to think of Wiley, to think of the fallout. He said we needed to be strategic, that pulling a gun and making threats wasn't the answer. He thought the gun was for Nina. He started coming toward me, to take it from me, to talk me down. And I panicked. My finger was on the trigger. I was gesturing, I was so upset, and he stepped right into it, and it just went off. The scene was painted now in all its devastating detail. Not a premeditated act of malice, but a perfect storm of high emotion, poor judgment, and tragic accident. A moment of panic that had irrevocably altered countless lives. Michael was silent for a long time, his head bowed. When he finally looked up, his eyes were glistening. But the love was still there, fighting its way through the shock and the horror. It was a battered, wounded love, but it was present. It was an accident, he said, the words not a question, but a statement he was trying to solidify in his own mind. A terrible, horrible accident. Does that matter? Willow asked, her voice hollow. He still almost died. He still lost months of his life, his memories. He was kidnapped because of his weakened state. Everything he went through, everything Jason went through to save him, it all leads back to me. To my reckless, stupid actions. You were not in your right mind, Michael argued, the Corinthos in him rising to the surface, the instinct to protect his family at all costs. Nina drove you to that point. She manipulated you, she pushed you. Stop! Willow cried, putting her hands over her ears. Stop making excuses for me, Michael. I pulled the trigger. Not Nina. Me. I have to own that. I can't. I can't hide behind someone else's sins anymore. This is mine. My sin. My cross to bear. The burden of it was immense, a weight that threatened to crush her into the earth. She thought of Drew, of his kindness, his unwavering support of her and Michael. She thought of the quiet strength he had shown in rebuilding his life. And she had been the one to nearly end it. The guilt was a corrosive acid eating away at her from the inside. And then, there was Carly. How would Carly, Drew's fiercest protector, his champion, react to this? Carly, who had once seen Willow as an enemy, who had only recently begun to accept her as Michael's wife. This truth would shatter that fragile peace. It would confirm every suspicion Carly had ever harbored. And Sonny? Sonny Corinthos, a man for whom family was everything, but whose justice was often swift and merciless. What would he do when he learned the woman who had shot his brother was married to his son? You can't tell anyone, Michael said suddenly, his voice low and intense, as if reading her thoughts. He stood up, his body tense with a new kind of energy, the energy of a man building a fortress. No one can ever know, Willow. She stared at him, aghast. Michael, I have to. I have to tell Drew. He deserves to know the truth. No, he doesn't. Michael's voice was sharp, desperate. Think about it, Willow. What good will it do? It will destroy him. He's finally happy. He has Carly, he has Scout, his life is back on track. Knowing that it was you, someone he trusts, someone he considers family, it would break him all over again. And what about the police? What about the charges? You could go to prison, Willow. We have Wiley to think about. Our son cannot grow up with his mother in prison for a tragic accident. The pragmatism in his words was chilling. He was already strategizing, building a case for the cover-up. He was becoming his father in that moment, making the hard, dark choices for the sake of the family. But Willow could not see it that way. The truth was a living, breathing entity inside her now, and it demanded release. To lock it away again, to consciously bury it this time, would be a different kind of death. I can't live with this lie, she whispered, her resolve hardening even as her body trembled. Not anymore. The first time, it was my mind protecting me. If I stay silent now, it's a choice. It's a sin of omission. It would make me a coward. It would make you a mother. Michael shot back, his voice cracking. It would make you a wife who wants to stay with her family. This isn't about courage, Willow, it's about survival. Our survival. They stood facing each other, a chasm of conflicting morality and desperate love opening between them. The penthouse, their sanctuary, had become a battleground. The decision was taken out of their hands by a soft knock on the door, followed by it opening. Carly Corinthos stood there, her expression concerned. Hey, I was just in the building and thought I'd. Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene, Willow's ravaged face, Michael's tense, pale stance, the palpable tension that choked the air. Her maternal instincts, always sharp where her family was concerned, went on high alert. What's going on? What's happened? Michael moved instantly, positioning himself slightly in front of Willow, a human shield. It's nothing, Mom. We were just having a discussion. Everything's fine. But Carly's eyes were fixed on Willow. She saw the truth that Michael was trying to hide. She saw the absolute devastation, the kind that only came from a soul-deep cataclysm. Willow? Carly said, her voice softer than usual, stepping further into the room. Honey, you look like you've seen a ghost. Talk to me. Willow looked from Michael's pleading, terrified face to Carly's worried, earnest one. She saw the woman who had fought so hard for Drew, who had stood by him through amnesia and kidnapping and heartbreak. She owed her the truth. She owed everyone the truth. The weight of the secret was already too heavy to carry, trying to hide it from Carly's perceptive gaze would be impossible. Carly, Willow said, her voice a fragile thread of sound. She took a step out from behind Michael's protective shadow. She needed to face this. My memories came back. About the night Drew was shot. Carly's breath hitched. Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting within them. Hope for closure, for justice. You remember? You know who did it? Willow nodded, a single, slow, agonizing movement. The tears began to fall again, hot and silent. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked at Michael, a silent plea for strength, but his face was a mask of grim resignation. He knew it was over. The truth was coming out. Taking a shuddering breath, Willow turned her gaze back to Carly, meeting it directly, accepting the judgment that was to come. It was me, Carly, she said, her voice gaining a sliver of strength from the sheer act of confession. I was the one who shot Drew. The hope in Carly's eyes died, replaced first by blank incomprehension, then by a dawning, icy fury. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. What? The word was a whip crack. It was an accident, Michael interjected quickly, his voice urgent. Mom, listen to me. She was upset about Nina. She had a gun, Drew came toward her, and it went off. She didn't mean to do it. Her mind blocked it out because of the trauma. Carly wasn't listening to him. Her entire focus was on Willow, her gaze boring into her, stripping away all pretense, all excuse. The woman who had once been her rival, then her son's wife, was now the person who had tried to kill the man she loved. You, Carly whispered, the word laden with a venom Willow had never heard directed at her before. All this time, we looked for a monster. We feared a killer. And it was you. Living in our home. Eating at our table. Playing with my grandson. Each word was a lash. You let us comfort you. You let Drew be kind to you. My God, the sympathy you got. I didn't know. Willow cried, the injustice of that accusation piercing through her guilt. I didn't remember. But you remember now. Carly shouted, her control snapping. And your first instinct was what? To tell your husband so he could help you cover it up? To protect yourself? No. I wanted to tell Drew, I wanted to confess. Like hell you did. Carly took a menacing step forward, and Michael moved to block her path. Get out of my way, Michael. Mom, stop it, he commanded, his own voice rising to match hers. You need to calm down and listen. This is still Willow. This doesn't change who she is. It changes everything. Carly roared, her pain transforming into a righteous, burning anger. She is a criminal. She shot an unarmed man and then ran away and left him for dead. She is not the victim here, Michael. Drew is. I am. We are the victims of her lies. She didn't lie. She had amnesia. A convenient excuse. Carly spat, her eyes blazing. She pointed a trembling finger at Willow. I want you out of this penthouse. You are not safe around my grandson. I want you away from my son. And I am going to the police. You are going to pay for what you did to Drew. The threat hung in the air, cold and final. The world that Willow had feared would shatter was now lying in pieces at her feet. Carly's wrath was a force of nature, and it was about to bring the full weight of the law down upon her. Michael would fight it, of course. He would use every resource, every legal trick, every ounce of Corinthos power and money to protect her. It would tear the family apart. It would pit mother against son. It would create a schism that might never heal. Willow looked at the two of them, locked in a furious standoff over her fate. She saw the love in Michael's eyes, twisted now by fear and desperation. She saw the hatred in Carly's, a pure, unadulterated fury born of a love for Drew. And in that moment, Willow knew. Her journey was no longer about reclaiming a lost past. It was about navigating an impossible present. It was about facing the consequences of a single, catastrophic moment that had defined her life without her even knowing it. She had to find a way to atone, to seek forgiveness from a man she had grievously wounded, to navigate the wreckage of her marriage and her family, and to find a way to live with the woman she had discovered herself to be, a woman capable of a violence she never knew she possessed. The truth was out. The storm had arrived. And for Willow Tate Corinthos, the long, dark night of reckoning had only just begun. Willow didn't know how she made it from the bedroom to the living room, only that her legs felt numb and her breath came in short, uneven bursts. The memories had crashed over her like a wave, loud, blinding, unstoppable. She braced a hand on the back of the sofa, trying to steady herself as image after image rippled through her mind. The warehouse. The shouting. The gun. Drew falling. Her finger pulling the trigger. No, she whispered, shaking her head as though she could fling the memories back into the darkness where they'd been hiding. No, that can't be real. That can't be me. Michael walked in just in time to see her trembling. Willow? Hey, what's wrong? His voice was tentative, like he was afraid one wrong move would shatter her. Willow lifted her gaze to him, but the guilt pressing against her chest made it hard to speak. Michael stepped closer. You look like you saw a ghost. I remembered, she said, her voice barely audible. Michael. I remembered what happened that night. Willow didn't know how she made it from the bedroom to the living room, only that her legs felt numb and her breath came in short, uneven bursts. The memories had crashed over her like a wave, loud, blinding, unstoppable. She braced a hand on the back of the sofa, trying to steady herself as image after image rippled through her mind. The warehouse. The shouting. The gun. Drew falling. Her finger pulling the trigger. No, she whispered, shaking her head as though she could fling the memories back into the darkness where they'd been hiding. No, that can't be real. That can't be me. Michael walked in just in time to see her trembling. Willow? Hey, what's wrong? His voice was tentative, like he was afraid one wrong move would shatter her. Willow lifted her gaze to him, but the guilt pressing against her chest made it hard to speak. Michael stepped closer. You look like you saw a ghost. I remembered, she said, her voice barely audible. Michael. I remembered what happened that night. His brow furrowed. The night Drew was shot? She nodded. Her throat closed, and the tears she'd been fighting finally spilled down her cheeks. Michael didn't hesitate, he cupped her face, thumbs brushing her tears away. Okay, he whispered. Just tell me. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. Willow swallowed hard. I was there. I didn't think I was, but I was. I saw it all. And Michael, I'm the reason Drew is in the hospital. I'm the one who shot him. Michael froze, every muscle in his body going still. Willow, you're not serious. But he could see in her eyes that she was. His hands dropped from her face, and he took a step back, trying to process what she had said. How? How could that even be possible? I didn't know. Willow cried. I didn't remember anything until just now. Something happened, something must have triggered it. She pressed a hand to her forehead as images flashed again. Drew was yelling at someone in the shadows. I thought he was in danger. I picked up the gun. I didn't even realize he was the one who moved into my line of fire. Michael exhaled sharply and rubbed a hand over his mouth, trying to steady himself. Willow, this is huge. We have to be sure. This could ruin everything if we're wrong. I'm not wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I saw it like it was happening again. I felt the gun in my hand, Michael. I pulled the trigger. And Drew, he looked at me like he couldn't believe what I'd done. Michael sat heavily on the coffee table in front of her. Okay, he murmured, more to himself than to her. Okay, let's slow down. You said someone was yelling. You said there were shadows. Could someone have manipulated you? Could this be something else, someone planting memories? Willow shook her head violently. No. This wasn't planted. It was real. I've had flashes for weeks, little fragments that didn't make sense, but now they're all connected. She wrapped her arms around her torso. Michael, what am I supposed to do? We'll figure it out, he assured her, though his voice wavered. But we need more information before we say anything to anyone. If this gets out. She cut him off. Drew deserves the truth. Michael squeezed his eyes shut. Yeah. He does. But you deserve protection too. You didn't do this intentionally. You're not a danger to anyone. You don't know that, she whispered. What if there's something wrong with me? What if the stress, or the treatment, or something in my recovery made me? Stop. Michael reached for her hands again and held them tightly. You've been through hell. Anyone else would have broken. You didn't. If something happened that night, there has to be a reason. We just have to find it. Before Willow could respond, the door opened and Carly stepped inside. Michael, she stopped when she saw Willow's tear-streaked face and the tension in the room. What's going on? Is something wrong with the kids? No, Michael said quickly. It's not that. Willow stood abruptly and wiped her face. Carly, I need to tell you something. And once I say it, everything is going to change. Carly blinked, scanning Willow's expression. You're scaring me. What happened? Willow exchanged a desperate glance with Michael before forcing herself to speak. I remembered what happened the night Drew was shot. Carly. I'm the one who did it. Carly stared at her for a long, silent moment. Then she laughed, not because she thought it was funny, but because her mind couldn't register the words. That's impossible. Willow, you would never. I didn't know, Willow insisted. I didn't remember. But I do now. Everything came back. Carly looked at Michael, searching his face for confirmation. Michael, tell me she's wrong. Michael exhaled shakily. I don't think she is. Carly's expression shifted from disbelief to something rawer, hurt, confusion, fear. Willow. Drew almost died. Why would you ever? I thought I was helping him, Willow said, her voice cracking. He was fighting with someone. I heard shouting. I panicked. I acted without thinking. And now everything is falling apart. Carly's jaw clenched. Who was he fighting with? Did you see their face? No, Willow whispered. It was dark. They were in the corner. It sounded like a man, but that's all I know. Carly paced, running both hands through her hair. Okay, we need to think this through calmly. She turned sharply toward Willow. You can't say anything to the police yet. Not until we know what we're dealing with. Willow recoiled. Carly, I shot him. I can't pretend I didn't. You didn't shoot him on purpose, Carly said firmly. And until Drew wakes up and tells us what he saw, you don't say a word. Do you understand? Willow didn't answer. Michael stepped between them. Carly, ease up. Willow's barely holding it together. I'm trying to help her, Carly snapped. Then softer, I'm trying to keep her from being railroaded. Willow backed away from both of them. I don't want protection. I want the truth out. I can't look at Wiley and Amelia and pretend I'm not responsible for hurting someone I care about. Michael moved to follow her, but Carly caught his arm. Let her breathe. Willow fled into the hallway, pressing her back against the wall as the memories continued to swirl. She felt like she was drowning. She didn't notice Nina coming from the elevator until her mother's voice broke through her haze. Willow? Honey, what's wrong? Willow flinched. Not now, Nina. Nina didn't budge. You're shaking. Michael and Carly are in there arguing, what happened? Willow inhaled, agonized. It doesn't matter. Nothing is going to change what I did. What you did? Nina repeated. What did you do? Willow looked at her mother, tears welling again. I shot Drew. I remembered everything. I'm the reason he might die. Nina staggered back like she'd been slapped. No. No, Willow, that can't be true. It is. Nina grabbed her arms. Listen to me. If you remembered something traumatic, it might not be accurate. Memories under stress can be manipulated. It's accurate, Willow whispered hoarsely. I feel it. I know it. Nina was silent for a moment, processing. Then she said, let me take you to the hospital. Let me help. I don't deserve help. Yes, you do, Nina said fiercely. Drew would want the truth. But he would also want compassion. And so do I. Willow's shoulders slumped. If I walk into that hospital, I might get arrested. Then I'll walk in with you. Willow hesitated. Michael and Carly will lose it. Then they can deal with it.